Personal Process fam, what is going on? Parham here, host of the Personal Process podcast. So it's January 2021. We have hit the new year, and I hope you are doing amazing because, I've hit some goals and I want to start off 2021 strong. So, with that being said, what I'm going to be doing is I'm actually going to be recording a lot more episodes with solo. And I'm going to try to probably in the middle of February to create two interview segments, one talking about the process and then one talking about where they are now and kind of how the lessons related back, and also try to throw in an individual episode in there so you guys have more content. And we're going to try to keep, the episodes from around February, maybe March, depending on how much we got going on, just 30 minutes each segment. So an hour for a full interview broken into, just so it's a little bit more digestible. We're going to try that on. If that's something that you guys don't like, just let me know in the comments below or, hit us up some other way and we'll get it going on. So what do I want to talk about in this episode other than the update? Great question. Thank you for asking. So what I want to talk about today is getting out of your comfort zone. Bam. You've heard that before, haven't you? And you're probably thinking, Param, come on, buddy. This is not what I was looking for right now in 2021. I want to relax. It's a new year. Let's celebrate. I got you, man. But 2021's hit and celebrations are done. We're ready to start a new year and I'm hoping to start it strong. That's why I made this video. Why is stepping out of your comfort zone so important? I'd like to share an anecdote of when I was a child. So when I was a child, my parents took me to McDonald's and back in the day, McDonald's, when you're a kid, you're getting all those toys. Beautiful experience. Now, I want to throw it back to one particular episode where I wanted ice cream, the beautiful ice cream cones from McDonald's. I don't know, I was probably like in the first grade, maybe kindergarten or something. And I told my dad, hey, can I get some ice cream? He mentioned, sure. Go ask the cashier. Now, I'm not sure if you guys remember this, but when you're a kid, going up to a cashier and asking for ice cream was probably the hardest thing that you could even imagine at that time. What ended up happening is I ended up going there and, I was super nervous. I was like, can I have an ice cream cone? In that cute, like kid voice. I was very lucky that the person who was on the till, they were very nice, very encouraging, and they smiled and, I felt good for it. And what ended up happening is from that day onwards, if I wanted something, I'd go do it. If I want to get an ice cream or, back in Canada, we have something called, not back in Canada, we have something called the junior chicken, which is essentially like a McChicken of the American version, but junior chicken, very similar, small differences, but that's the go-to thing. And, like, obviously I wasn't still in grade one and just strolling around, but, further on in life, that's what happened. I wasn't nervous. And why do I mention this specific example? Well, let me throw in another anecdote. When I was in the 9th grade, we had a friend, and I'm not going to mention his real name, but just, as a, what's that word? I can't remember the word to disguise a name, but we'll call this person Bob. Classic. And, Bob, we're going into the supplement store because in, grade 9 back in, what is that? I don't know, 2010s time, getting protein powder was the way to go. And, everyone goes in pretending like they know their stuff. I'm like, oh, yeah, I know how to do everything. I didn't know anything at that time. I still don't, but I'm learning, one step at a time for sure. A lot more to learn, a lot more to do that. Anyways, I'm not here to have a monologue about that. But what ended up happening in that case is my friend Bob was mentioning that, hey, ask this person for protein powder. Which one's the best one? I was like, bruh, why don't you ask? And I was like, oh, I don't want to know this. And I don't remember exactly what happened, but I realized that he was scared. And I think he even may have mentioned it. And I'm thinking to myself, we're in grade 9. So how old are we? 14, something like that, 14, 15. And I'm like, why aren't you able to have this conversation with this individual? He was never asked to, and maybe his parents helped him out in that regard. And for better or worse, that was the way that it was. Now, this is just a very small example of stepping out of your comfort zone, but the impact is huge because what ends up happening is when you step out of your comfort zone, you build something called self-efficacy. Now, that is a word that sounds very cool, but what does it mean? Well, essentially, self-efficacy is the belief in yourself to accomplish things. Yeah, it's not just how you feel about yourself. It's the belief in yourself to accomplish things. Now, how do you add to it? First of all, you learn a little bit about certain things. You get feedback from other people saying that you've done it right. And this feedback for me could have been the smile of the, person, the waitress, taking my order down. That's feedback to me saying, hey, have you done a good job? It could also be things such as, a mastery in this subject. But essentially, anything, even if it's unrelated and you've accomplished it, that's going back to your brain saying, hey, you're doing something good. Hey, you're doing something good. And over time, the more and more you do something well, the better you feel in accomplishing new tasks. Now, for example, with this regard, let's say I now have the confidence to go order an ice cream. Sounds pathetic, I know, but when I'm in, how old was I? I don't know, super young, grade 1 or grade 2, I consider that pretty huge, man. I consider that a huge deal. And feel free to make fun of me. It's all part of the process, right? But what ended up happening is after, like it became, grade school and, I'm working on it, I'm doing all this. And let's say, I don't know, high school sometime, grade 12, and I'm trying to get into university, right? So let's say I get a test back and there's an unfair mark. Now, a lot of people would say that, hey, just let it go. It doesn't matter. It's grade grubbing. It's XYZ. But I wasn't about that. I wanted to get into university and like I was at the cusp of it. Some grades were amazing. Some other grades were not. Shout out to English 12. I think I still did okay, but it is what it is, right? So what I ended up doing sometimes is if I noticed a grade wasn't fair, I'd go up to my teacher and be like, hey, I'm just wondering how this was broken down. Very respectfully. I wouldn't demand like, you need to give me my grade. None of that. But, just like wondering how it's broken down. Like, oh, interesting. I mean, I thought it was this way. Do you think that we can maybe meet in the middle and like give half the points for this? Because I got this concept. I understand I missed this concept. And, just showing that like I understand where I lost the marks. But I think that maybe there is an intermediate solution to where we're both thinking. And, sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. And this is something that I'm very sad, to discuss because, the people that wouldn't, sometimes they would get upset and angry at me and they'd be like, I'm not going to use the word, they didn't say something like grade grubbing, but they get angry. They think that I'm just going for something that I don't deserve or like I'm that person, that student. But shouldn't we be teaching students in school how to, have a healthy conflict with an outcome? I mean, don't you do that for when you want to get a job? Don't you do that when you want to ask for a promotion, ask for a raise? Yeah, you do. But the only difference is now you don't have the practice and it's frowned upon to do these kind of things. So if an individual even believes in themselves, develops that, self-confidence, maybe they won't believe that they can do this because it's not right, quote unquote. It's a hard thing to swallow. And, it's something that I wish the education taught because even in university, like, man, some profs would just like shake their head at me like, oh no, I'm right. I'm right. And I mean, like that's not a way to teach students because it's not only the things that you're learning in school, it's the way that your behavior is also teaching them through vicarious action. When you see someone do something, you're learning. For example, on the first day of school, if you went to, I don't know, the first orientation day and your leader took you upstairs or through an elevator, you learn that that's kind of the norm here. And then you do that. And this is going to relate way back, but let's say like health habits, right? Like that's how you start it. You introduce someone to the stairs, they're more likely to use it. And that's what they've known, that's what they've experienced, and they're more likely to do those kind of things. So, it's just something to note and something that I wish the education system changed. And again, no, I'm not going to be too negative on my professors. I've had a lot of great professors, but this is something that I've noticed that could get improved. And if anything, I wish them all the best, but this is just something that may have not been something they're thinking about. And fair enough. I mean, professors are loaded with a lot of questions. They're loaded with so much work. They're teaching, they're mentoring, they're writing papers, they're applying for grants. I don't blame them. And if anything, it's just maybe a reminder for something to consider. And some will consider, some won't. And that's okay. If I can make that impact on one professor or one person who's listening to this to maybe think a different way, even if it's an employer, a manager, anything, that's huge. And, it's not just that one person, because that one person can have their own effect on other people. And it is what? A network effect. Wow. This has been an interesting solo cast. I haven't done one of these since I had the prior podcast that I rebranded into the Personal Process podcast called the Personal Growth Podcast. So I'm not sure how this is going to do, and I probably need to get a green screen so you guys aren't looking at that background sometime soon. But I mean, it is what it is for now. It's my own personal process, my own personal journey. And, I hope if you took one thing away from this video, it's to try something new, whether it's a sport, whether it is stepping out of your comfort zone to contact friends, whether it is approaching a new individual, obviously after COVID and all that, and saying, hi, my name is X, my name is Bob. Or even trying something that's just completely out of your field of study or field of expertise. The impact it makes on your life is huge. And I honestly believe that the way that you interpret reality is your reality. The way that you think about life is how it is. If you think you can do something, you can do it. And you may fail, but you can still keep going and eventually you'll hit it. Because let's be honest, everything in life is chance. And the amount of expertise you have in a field and the amount of connections definitely alter that chance, but everything's luck. So the people who are very committed to getting something will eventually get it. And I don't know if that's going to be today. I don't know if that's going to be tomorrow. I don't know if that's going to be in 10 years or when they're 70. But if they have that internal motivation, they will get to it. So step out of your comfort zone, do something that scares you, and develop your self-efficacy. Thanks so much for tuning in to the first solo episode of the Personal Process Podcast. Parham out.